Okay, so I have put in 3 coats on the background. I blow dried it, and a couple of coats on the shell. I'm gonna throw this over here so I don't protect it for a second to show you guys the next steps. Now you're gonna need your little dish, okay, your sanding, your little palette, your sanding block, and your Conte crayons for this next step. Okay, so now I'm gonna prepare a little paste. Looking at my shell, I'm seeing that there's a lot of raw umber in it. So I'm going to take my sanding block and this. I'm going to create a little powder in the middle. I'm going to put it in the center. And I'm just going to use the sandpaper. Into the wind. And I'm just going to see how I'm making a little powder. So you can use this, you're going to use this directly on dry, and you're going to use it like I'm doing now as a paste too. Okay? Okay, move that over. And then with my little round brush, all I'm doing is I'm dipping it straight in my coffee. I'm going to mix a little paste. Okay, and this will create like a little watercolor kind of tone, right? So that I can then use to paint in some of the colorations I see on my shell. Okay, so let me put this over here. I'll put it here. Dip it in, create my tone. Then I'm going to go ahead and just start blocking in some of the colorations that I see here. Do a little test. I like the way it looks. A little more coffee. And notice how I'm not like, I'm brushing in, kind of blotting it along as I see it. I'm not like doing straight paintbrush marks, right, that you see. I'm kind of looking at the shape of the different colorations that I see on the shell. And I'm also paying attention to how they change direction as they follow the contour of the shell as well. Okay, you see how that works? Go ahead and add another layer in there. Now a turn direction going up, like that. And you'll see a bunch of these different colorations in different areas. Go ahead and, for this section, block that in. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll speed this part up. I'm not like brushing straight across planes though. I'm really paying attention to where these planes are as I do them. Okay, so that's my next step. Notice how I am using kind of a nervous mark. I'm moving my hand with a light touch. I'm moving it around, following the topography of the shell while looking at the marks. You'll notice that overall the marks, the colorations might be broken up, but they do form a pattern oftentimes in shells. So take a look, notice that overall there's a pattern, but individually they're broken up. Okay, so I'm using a small round brush to get at the details and changing direction on each plane. All right, laid down the colorations using my Conte wet mixed. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of ink to my coffee. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have my coffee right here, my ink, my coffee right next to it. Let me push that over a little so you can see. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush, my brush all the way into the coffee, and then I'm going to mix it, into the ink, and I'm going to mix it into the coffee. I'm going to do that twice. 1, 2. Mix it really well. Okay. Then put your lid back on. Actually, what you want to do before you put the lid back on is just take a little bit, wipe it off, and do a little test. I'm testing on a piece of drawing paper off to the side. And you want it to be, you don't want it to be totally dark. This is where it is right now, right here. Not dark enough. So I'm going to go ahead and dip twice. I'm going to double the amount of ink in my coffee. And by the way, my coffee is only about a third of the way full of this container that I showed you earlier. I will test that. Yeah, 2 more. 1, 2. Mix it thoroughly, get it out of the heel, turn it. Okay, I'm gonna do 1 more. So basically you want to get it so that, I'll show you how dark in a minute. You want to get it so it's about, yeah, that's good. Put the lid back on, always important. All right, and then when I start blocking in, you'll see how dark it is. But now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and paint in another layer on the core shadow, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead and put in my cast shadow too. Okay, so I'm just gonna do more shadow work, coffee plus ink, okay? And you know, test it before you apply, make sure it's the right amount. Don't make it straight black. You wanna start off medium and then build layers off of the medium. Because, you know, remember that this cast shadow is not one value, right? It's like maybe darkest here, and then there's a lighter, you know, at the edges it gets a little lighter. So I'm going to start in the darker areas, and I'm going to build with layers. Okay, you've learned how to build by adding ink. This time I'm going to do with layers. By the way, each layer before you add the next, throughout the whole process, whether it's coffee or ink or Conte, needs to be dry. So make sure that it's dry in between. What you're not seeing is I'm blow drying in between each layer. Okay? All right. I'm going to go ahead and speed up and build out some of the shadow work. Yeah, now I'm making the cast shadow, and notice when you're looking at your cast shadows that it's going to be, you know, you're going to see different directions and different edges. So look for that. I'm also laying down some core shadow and going back and giving some more texture using both Conte and ink. And you see how there's the 3 different directions of light and the different edges of the cast shadow too. So, you know, by overlaying, you can create different, not only different values, but different edges. Okay, the last few moves I'm going to make, I kind of did already, but I'll do it again just so you can see. Using a 6B extra soft, you can go in and where the darker areas, you could just do a little bit of hatch in there. Make sure that your ink's dry when you do this. Okay, just where it's really dark. And then you can go ahead, you can do 1 or 2 things. You could take a blending stump or a little Q-tip and you can kind of push it into the paper and kind of get it to darken like that. Or you could put it in, and if you don't want to show, if you want it to get wet again, kind of throw it. You see I'm kind of following the contour in here too. You know how it's kind of cupping, creating a cup. Then I would take my brush, my small brush, dip it in coffee, or yeah, dip it in coffee and just soften it out like that. So that'll create a nice shadow as well. Nice transition. Remember, modulate this shadow. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to modulate it so I have, you know, light, dark, medium dark, 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 and then very dark, dark, right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shades happening. And that's what you want to do. And also you can go in, you know, with a little detailed brush and go in and kind of just cup a couple areas on your core shadows. Just for the final, then create a little more contrast. Contrast is always best, right? You want to create a little contrast in there, you know, in your cast and core shadows. So here's my core shadow. I'm going to kind of push that out a little bit. I'm just dipping it in my ink and coffee mixture, and I'm going to kind of create a little more form there. So these are a couple of my last moves that I'm doing just to kind of create a little more contrast. Darker darks, lighter lights usually make for a better drawing. That's kind of what I'm doing. Okay, and then a couple other moves. Come on in with your dry Conte. You can go in and kind of put it over some areas like that. that you see, take your blending stump or Q-tip and kind of rub it back in, you know, kind of create some softer transitions. And then same with your white Conte, you can go in and create little snappy marks like that, you know, little highlights, or some reflective mark. Reflective light is always more muted, right? It's going to be softer. So you can go in like this and then come in and soften it afterwards. And that creates a nice reflective light. Okay, so those are the two. So here, this is a highlight, these lighter areas, right? The snappier bright ones. And these, in the transitions where from light to dark, you're going to see a little reflective light in there. So look for that. Then, to finish it all off, I'm going to go over the whole background again. One more coat of just straight coffee. And, you know, look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow and see what I have to do, if I have to increase the contrast or do anything else. I like to think, okay, I feel like I'm done, and then I'll look at it one more time, and I'll always find something, one more thing to do. So, last move, water, straight coffee, no ink, just coffee. Make sure that you just have your coffee and go in. You can even brush over your shadows and just kind of warm them up a little bit to connect it all back together again, and brush over the whole background one more time. Okay? And that, my friends, should bring this drawing to an end. Now, this whole thing took start to finish, took me about an hour and a half. Should take you twice as long, because you've never done it, if not longer. Take your time, you know, spend some time on this. You know, I'm calling it done just because I've taken you through the process. I'd probably spend another couple hours on it and really get at some detail too, but I think this is a good place for you to see how to get, you know, to get to a state that you can be proud of. And it looks like a shell, right? It looks like a shell with volume, you know, with, so what am I looking for in this drawing? I'm looking for form, I'm looking for a light source, I'm looking for a cast shadow, and I'm looking for detail, detailed marks on your shell, to make it look like an individual, you know, like a unique shell. Okay? That concludes my demo for this. Now, once it's totally dry, you will then, when you submit this, I don't want to see any tape. So when it's totally dry, slowly peel off the tape, peel out, not up. Peel out slowly, out to the perimeter, and slowly. And keep your hands close to the source. Keep your finger, you know, holding the paper down, okay? From where the contact is, where the tape is. All right, can't wait to see what you guys do.